Hey, welcome to the All Ambient podcast, everybody, where we dig into the creative process and we explore the minds of some people behind some of the finest ambient music out there. My name is Mike Graff. I make music as Dear Gravity. I have the absolute joy of being able to sit with someone who perhaps the face is not familiar to many of you out there, but I guarantee that you have heard a mountain of his work. The amount of projects that this man touches on a week-to-week basis, a year-to-year basis, is nothing short of outstanding. And literally everything that I've heard from this guy is he makes my life that much better. We'll talk more about that as we go. But I have the pleasure of welcoming Benjamin Lincoln from Middle Mastering to the All Ambient podcast. Benjamin, welcome, man. So glad to have you.
Thank you, Mike. Great to be here. Very excited.
So excited you're here. You are for sure the first mastering engineer that we have had on the podcast, which kudos to that. But there is no secret as to why it is you who is here on the podcast. Benjamin, you have mastered. I mean, we could get into the nitty gritty. Maybe you know the numbers off the top of your head, but just even thinking about the amount of songs that you have mastered for me, for Dear Gravity over the past handful of years. I mean, it is in the multiple hundreds of songs that you have mastered just for me, for sure. And then you multiply that out by all of the projects that you've done for many of the labels that are very familiar territory to a lot of the artists and the listeners and the All Ambient community. You've made a massive impact on the ambient world with the ingenuity and the expertise that you bring to mastering, not just the ambient genre, but every genre you touch. But man, thank you so much I'm kind of fanboying a little bit right now, honestly.
I'm blushing.
Thank you for bringing what you do to the ambient space, and the care that you give to every project you touch is nothing short of outstanding. So seriously, so glad that we get to do this together. Yeah.
Thank you, Mike. Those words mean everything. That is massive to hear, that sort of feedback.
Oh man. I'm
honored genuinely to be working with so many incredible people around the world who I just think are, amazing at what they do.
Yeah. Well, it cuts both ways for you to be amazing at what you do, and you help accentuate what a lot of people, all the incredible hard work of the songs that you do get to master. So great. Love the relationship. So many avenues we get to explore. Again, like digging deeply into the post-production stuff is something that we've done bits and pieces of throughout all the episodes, but we get to we get to have more fun talking about that. Not that it's going to be a deep analytical like, oh, what specific frequency do you bump when you like that's not the point at all of what we're talking about. But I know we'll get into some more of the nitty gritty on the actual mastering stuff as we go. I wanted to start off first and foremost kind of at the beginning of the story. I'd love to hear a little bit about you growing up, about what music sort of became to you, along your journey, and when you started identifying like, wow, I think I've got kind of a knack for this. I think I want to be spending a significant portion of my life, of my time, on working with music. Just tell me a little bit about that journey.
So I think probably like all of us, music has been, almost the most forefront thing in my life as far back as I can remember. My parents always had music playing of all kinds of styles, genres, and also both musicians as well. So live music, hearing actual instruments was a really big part of my childhood. So I'm classically trained as a pianist. That's sort of, I guess, my first experience of playing music, creating music.
Yeah. Playing
with other people as well. And yeah, just, I mean, I can think of one moment in terms of sort of sound. So, going beyond kind of just playing. But I received a pair of headphones from my parents as one birthday. I think I was about 12, maybe.
Okay.
And before that, I guess been listening on like the little iPod, like the first original,
of course,
that sort of thing. And these
like the free ones that come with the iPod.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Yeah. Yep.
And these headphones that I got were nothing special. They were Sennheiser something, maybe sort of 40, 50 quid.
Yeah.
But it absolutely blew my mind in terms of, wow, that is what sound can be. And I think I just spent, I mean, I used to listen to music going to sleep every single night,
Wow.
Everything,
Yeah.
any kind of genre.
Yeah.
And I think that started off a journey of kind of trying to work out how people make music sound so good. What is it about sound, good sound, quality sound that can move people, that can connect us to each other or connect us to our emotions or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That moment really sticks out for me. And, that was a long time ago. And ever since then, it's just been, I think that quest really trying to connect, get back to that connection of that kind of initial, wow, that's what music can sound like. That's how it can affect me.
Yeah. Oh man, I love that. Fast forward from there. Actually, before we fast forward, tell me a little bit more about the classically trained pianist. Do you still play to this? I mean, clearly I know it's in your system, but are you still active on piano? Is that kind of a part of your life rhythm?
Yeah, in a way, but very, I went through all the exams. I don't know if they have that in the US, but
sure.
In the UK, we have sort of classical exams, and I got sort of did all that, and I think, I actually I didn't say, but I moved on to also playing bass as well.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Which it probably doesn't come as a surprise, maybe.
No. Sure.
Because I think the way that I hear is very focused on. I love low end. I think we've had this conversation before.
Yeah, we have indeed.
Yeah. So yeah, low end is, the best. And that comes from that for sure. So I played in bands and that sort of thing. So I kind of, there's a side of me that's classically trained and I do it when I can. There's not much time.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because I love it, but it's intense to learn that kind of music. You have to really be in it.
Oh, no joke. I mean, you're cannonballing into the deep end on that for sure. Yeah. Okay, so fast forward to, I mean, clearly, with middle mastering and the amount of work that you're handling on a day-to-day basis, and I want to hear a little bit more about the life rhythm too. But at what point did it become clear to you, like, I've got a knack for the post-production side of things? Like, this is something that I can provide as a service to, I don't know if it was for yourself or for the bands or the artists that you were currently working with, or if you were just, approached out of nowhere, or just how that started coming into shape. But when did that start to form? Because again, I love every bit of work that you put into all this stuff. When did middle mastering become middle mastering, I guess, is the best way to shorten that.
This is a good question. So yeah, fast forwarding a bit from sort of teenage years, I did a course at school when I was, I think about 16, 17, and they only offered it for that 1 year. So I was very fortunate to do this course. And it was a music production course, basically.
That's awesome. Love that.
And so I went from, appreciating sound and playing sound and, almost wanting to kind of, be a musician.
Yeah.
And go down that route, to suddenly being exposed to the other side of all of this world, which is, mixing, producing, recording, and live sound as well. I just totally fell in love with that and decided I wanted to go and study it further at college, at university.
Yeah.
So did that. Did a music production course at college. Met some amazing people. The course was a lot less sort of technical and more kind of creative, compositional. We were kind of, let loose. We were allowed to do whatever. So I got really into kind of sound art and creating kind of installations with loads of speakers around there. It was a fun time. But during that course, I had a really good friend who was incredibly prolific at creating music. He was just, I remember sitting outside of, lecture halls waiting to go in, and he'd be sitting on his laptop with his headphones on, just creating stuff constantly. He had banks and banks of projects, work in progress type things. And I was kind of in awe of him, but he one day had sort of finished kind of putting together an album, and he asked me, and I have no idea why, but he said, "Can you master this?" And I'd never mastered any. I didn't even know really what that was.
Yeah, yeah.
So we booked out one of the studios at the uni, and we sat in there for, I think, maybe 6 hours, 8 hours,
Okay.
and mastered this album. I mean, we had no idea what we were doing.
Yeah.
But I just fell in love with that kind of, I guess, again, thinking about music as this kind of, this emotional connection back to, you know, the mastering process is, for me, that final step of connecting back to who is going to listen to this.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost, I don't think it's the first time we really asked that question, but it's the first time we asked that question before we can not do anything else.
Sure.
So it's the last creative step, but also the first step of kind of manufacture. And I use that word very loosely, but
oh, totally.
It's you know, we're thinking about how this thing is going to be received, you know, and it's when you're producing something or mixing something or recording something, and you're sitting in the tracking room or the mix room, and you know you've got the artist sitting next to you, and you say, okay, let's have a listen to what we've got. I mean, pretty much everyone rides the volume control, and sort of it gets louder and louder and louder because it just sounds great.
Yep.
But when we get to mastering, we can't do that anymore. You know, it's going to go out into the world, and people are going to hear it just laid bare what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it was that part that very much interested me. You know, it's I found that fascinating. And so I did that album, and this guy released it on SoundCloud, I think. And then I think other people who were making music on the course, and in the music course and the music production course, there were a few sort of different courses altogether. Mm-hmm. They heard it, and people started asking me, and it sort of just grew from there, very organically. And you know, I was really thrown in the deep end in a way because I had no idea what I was doing at all. I've never had a mentor or someone to show me what to do, basically. Yeah. You know, it's been a very kind of make mistakes and be open with that and learn, you know?
Yeah. Wow. Well, first of all, I love that. Thank you for bearing your story and sharing it with us. But yeah, I mean, to be unafraid to make mistakes is such a big deal. I think that stops a lot of us from publishing, from distributing, you know, from just getting songs done, is because I think there's kind of this nerve-wracking, well, but what if, you know, what if it's not perfect, or what, like the way we learn is by, you know, just obediently getting in motion and doing that. And so I love, you're like, well, I'm making mistakes, but here we go. Let's figure it out. That's awesome. But you compound that with the fact that, you know, and don't get me wrong, I love folks that have vision and like, this is where I want to go. But like, and I know that you have such a deep love for music and it's in you, but as far as like how that was going to get fleshed out, or what role were you going to play within that, maybe necessarily wasn't clear from the very, very get-go, but to almost have, you know, life experience reveal to you like, hey, this is something that you have quite a knack for. That's just a beautiful thing, that you weren't actively like, this is what I'm going to do, and here's my business plan, and you know, we're gonna and all that. And again, no fault to anyone who approaches life that way, but there is something kind of symbiotic and just really beautiful about, you know, you literally, like, you worked on something, and by people hearing that something, they're like, wow, this is great. Can you work on my something too? And then for that to just sort of snowball, and for you to continue to develop your craft and your expertise in that field, and learn more and more, and keep making mistakes just like we all do. But I love that process of kind of discovering just how great you really are at it in almost accident, probably isn't the right word, but just in a, like when you're walking through the fog, like you can see about one step in front of you, like, I'm going to do this one thing. And then, you know, as you take that step, then the next step is revealed to you. And I love that journey for you. That I'm just, what a cool thing. And cut to now, you got a full plate of incredible artists and incredible, you know, the label partnerships that, you know, that you've worked out and everything. Like, you are working on so much music all the time. And before we get to that, I did even want to comment on one thing that you mentioned about just kind of the emotional connection to music. And we were talking just a little bit before we hit the record button. I love your heart, man. I really do. I love that. And again, like there's so many technical things about mastering that is above my pay grade. that
Me too.
like, oh, here's the frequency that you bump in this particular spot if they're overlap, all the nitty gritty things that that certainly have their place. It is not false information. But like you said, at the same time, there is a level of responsibility that I hear you putting on your own shoulders, of that emotional connection, of that, like, what does this song need as it is about to go enter into the world, as it's about to go be fleshed out into, to the countless homes, that the countless earbuds, the countless car stereos, the countless really crappy iPhone speakers, the countless, beautiful sound systems and all that. What does this thing need? And I really appreciate that the final step from you is not a cold, calculated, blah, blah, blah. And again, like you are technically proficient at what you do. You are, there's expert level in that. We're not saying that doesn't exist, but that's not the biggest part of the equation, is what I'm hearing from you. The biggest part of the equation is for you to feel emotionally connected with the work that you're doing. And then what can you do with it that helps it translate to that next step? So kudos to you for that, man, because that's a really beautiful thing. And to be honest, it probably makes it more work for you in a sense, right? Where it's not just like, okay, here's my template, here's my copy paste, and away we go.
Yeah.
But rather it's like, okay, like I have to make conscious choices on what I'm going to do with this next release. And I really appreciate that. I think that's a pretty beautiful thing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, every project starts fresh. It's to put it on the speakers or headphones, or whatever sort of I feel I'm going to connect with it most, and just listen. I think mastering, this is, I mean, it's so often overlooked, this part of mastering. If you go on, Gearspace or Reddit or wherever, forum or YouTube, and look up how to master, all you see is compressors and attack and release, and people forget that actually what we're doing is listening. We are the first audience, and trying to encapsulate how something is going to be received, and whether it's doing what you feel it's going to needs to do to make it successful, whatever that means. And that's that's another huge part of it, that whatever it means, I mean, there's no rules with this stuff.
I love that, man. It's great. So cool. Am I finding you in the very space that you master most of your projects? We're in the room right now.
Yes, we are. You're looking at the back wall with sort of a jumble of bass trapping, and in front of me you've got two nice speakers, headphones. And then down to the side, sort of a small rack of tools that I've found over the years to give me what I want, I suppose.
Yeah. Amazing. Love that. Well, with that, talk me through a little bit of what does a day or a week in the life of Benjamin, the mastering engineer, look like? Like I'm fascinated by this, because it's equal parts, the artistry of it, but also just the physical job nature of it, and giving your ears a rest, and how to kind of clear your mind and all that. What does a week or a day look like for you? Do you have kind of your typical blocks of like, I'm going to be mastering stuff for this many hours in the morning or this many hours in the afternoon, or is it a lot more flexible for you? With the amount of work that I am willing to guess that you have a pretty deliberate calendar, but I could be very wrong on that. But knowing how much you put out there, I'm willing to bet that there is some level of like, well, if I want to be this consistent, I probably need to have a calendar that's pretty ship-shape, locked in. And that's not a bad thing by any means. What a gift to be able to touch so many awesome projects. But what does the calendar look like? What does your life rhythm look like? And how have you, optimized it to the way where you're getting the best of yourself in your work?
Yeah, great question. So I run everything here. So, if you email me, it's me that responds.
Awesome.
My day sort of is mixed between that side, chatting to people, emailing, having conversations about, what it is that their music means to them, what they're expecting of me, going back and forth with revisions, instrumental versions, vocal up versions, vocal down, radio edits, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then also the kind of business side, so invoicing, making sure people have got the right deliverables for what they need. Yeah. And then mixed with doing the work, I suppose, which is, in an ideal world, I would just love to be doing that. But you can't have one without the other, I think. And the relationships that I've built up with people like yourself and, countless other incredible people that I find myself incredibly lucky to work with. I don't think that side would be as meaningful to me without, spending time talking to these people.
Mm-hmm.
So, a general week sort of, I book everything in kind of when I can. It's busy these days. It can be, 3-4 weeks into the future.
Yeah.
Thankfully, most people I work with are pretty up on when their deadline is. And so we can keep to that. But so I do keep in little spaces throughout the week just in case sort of last minute things come in, which does happen. Some people, they need it yesterday.
Artists be artists. Yeah.
Yeah. But part of my job, is to accommodate that. That's what I'm here for. Yep. So, factoring that in is important. Throughout the week, I probably, a full week is, maybe 5-6 EPs, sort of similar number of singles, a couple of albums. It's a decent amount of work. It's long days with doing the admin side, kind of, before and after it. But I've really set, my studio is at home, so I can sort of wake up, early in the morning and turn everything on, and the day sort of, that kind of getting into the mindset of being kind of open to listen to whatever is coming in the day is sort of already starting.
Yeah.
And with that sort of, I like to do, a first pass of something early in the morning, or, as early as possible. I find I'm freshest then.
Yeah.
And as the day goes on, it's sort of more kind of the admin side that doesn't require kind of that much brain power, Because being kind of open to that kind of emotion and just listening critically for, 8-9 hours a day is, at the end of the day, is that I'm tired.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you definitely know, when you're mixing something and you get so kind of down into that kind of rabbit hole, and then suddenly you come out and you're like, where have I been?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's sometimes surprising how much energy, and not in a bad way, but just the amount of brain calories that are spent on intentional listening, and that you're not wrong by any means. But again, kudos to you for being one who does that intentional listening instead of okay, well, yep, here's the template and away it goes. Yeah, that's I appreciate you digging in on that for sure. I love that. I think that's such a cool rhythm, and for you to be aware of what time of day is best to swing at this part of it versus that part of it. Just, I love that. And then you multiply that over time, you stay consistent with that, and cut to probably thousands of songs that you master a year. Like that's, I'm not going to demand that you hit actual specific numbers with me, but that is, you're prolific at what you do, Benjamin, and just,
Thank you,
only admit, for you, there has to be a love for what you do, for you to be not only as proficient, but as consistent as you are putting out the work that you do. So man, keep up the good work.
Thank you, man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. I am curious, when you enter into, I'm not asking for any trade secrets or anything like that, but just for instance, like, why don't you take one of the new projects that I've sent you over? Like, hey, I'm working on a new Dear Gravity thing, which you're always working on a new Dear Gravity thing. So thank you for that.
Blessed.
When you receive that over, like, do you have kind of a checklist of like, I need to like, as you're actively listening through it, like, I need to make sure that I'm hitting, or that I've got it sounding this particular way, or that I make sure I'm not forgetting about managing these frequencies or this gain or this or whatever. And again, like, I'm not trying to get the secret recipe or anything like that, but there is a part of me that that knows how much goes into the post-production side and how much I am really glad that I am not the person who has to do that part of it. Like I am grateful for the side of it that I personally do, and I'm so thrilled at that. But it also makes me really appreciate those like yourself who are really gifted in the post-production side of things. So what does that rhythm look like? Do you have like a literal checklist, or are you, with the amount of work you do, there's a lot of it's got to be pretty habitual in a sense where like I know what I'm listening for. I know, just kind of instinctively what I'm going to do, not in a, again, copy paste sort of thing, but more so in the, this is just part of my life rhythm. But yeah, do you have specific things that you're trying to do with each release, or is it very much a, what does this release need and how do I get it there?
I think that, yes and no. It would be a short answer. But to go deeper, I think, each project is totally unique and will require a real kind of fresh start, into that. Mm-hmm. And almost without kind of, say if you, when you send me over a project, say, hey, Ben, this is something I've been working on. Love you to master it. The first thing I'll do is just, whack it up and have a listen and sort of see where we're at. I don't care about levels, kind of LUFS, peak, whatever. I just want to, hear, I'm hearing what you're hearing basically and trying to sort of get into that mindset. And then when I sort of go, okay, ask the question to myself, what can I add to this? What is it needing that is going to allow me or others to connect to it more deeply and more meaningfully? And the answer to that can sort of, bring up anything, really.
Sure.
And then, the other side of it is, yes, that, there are kind of technical requirements. They're not that deep and feel very habitual to me and sort of, baked in kind of from the start. I think the less you can think about kind of, or be concerned with technical stuff, and the more energy you can put on the creation and the emotional side of it, you know, the technical will follow, I think. Absolutely. If you do enough of it. But yeah, I mean, overall level, I think for, ambient music that, we're sort of mainly focusing on today, levels do play a part for a lot of people. But in that space, I think it's kind of almost one of the least important aspects, potentially.
Tell me more.
Yeah, I suppose the way that, and I can only really speak from my own experience, but the way that I sort of listen to, and I'm a big fan of ambient, I have been for years actually. I think that's why I've sort of found myself in this space. But I listen sort of, I'm more likely to listen to an album, for example, or even a playlist is going to sort of have more of a kind of album feel potentially. And within that sort of the kind of overall level for me maybe isn't as important as how kind of each kind of element is hitting kind of emotionally.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think the thing you get with volume, and I may be sort of comparing this more to, pop music, rock music, sure. Alternative music, we're getting up to the kind of, not to get too technical, but like -7, -8 LUFS. Whereas, a lot of stuff that I work on ends up around kind of -14, -12, sometimes below. And I think that's okay. I think with a lot of kind of ambient music being more dynamic, there are things that you could lose if you push levels, to say, the alternative or pop kind of, where they would sit naturally. And I know I have nothing wrong. I love pushing things loud. There's a certain kind of intensity that happens when you do that. Yeah. And for certain ambient music, I mean, Tim Hecker comes to mind. His releases are ridiculously loud.
Yeah.
I think there's one track, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like -4.
Yeah.
But it needs that. It has that kind of intensity that allows it to connect again. So it's sort of it's going back to that question of how do we connect? And I think, for a lot of kind of more dynamic styles, just pushing it for the sake of, okay, I just need this to be loud because I'm a mastering engineer. I make things loud. That's what I do. I found that I lose something about the kind of the space. And there's this kind of sweet spot that I find is sort of, -14, -13, -12.
Yeah.
where, you know, it's going to sit well on a playlist,
Yeah.
on Spotify, for example, or, you know, wherever. But also it's going to still say what it needs to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then sort of format wise, you know, I keep things as high as possible until it needs to be changed, basically. So if someone sends me 48 kilohertz 24-bit WAV, it stays at that until right at the end. Yeah. Again, not to get too technical, but I've always found sample rate changes, it just loses something.
For sure.
Yeah, that you can't ever get back. So keeping it at the kind of native resolution. But these things, they're not that deep, really. I think much more of my kind of focus is less ticking off boxes and more kind of, when I'm working on something, I have a timer actually by my desk that I don't always use, but it sort of, I'll do like 30 minutes and it'll beep and I go, okay, fine. I walk away, go and, you know, have a cup of tea or sit in the garden.
Yeah.
Or, you know, just whatever, hang out the washing.
Yeah,
So the perks of living at home, of working at home, and then come back and see where I am. And, you know, it's that fresh perspective. And I think that this job, it requires a lot of breaks for the ear to be fresh.
Yeah.
And the mind, you know, it's sort of being as open as possible.
Yeah.
To what you're working with, basically.
Yeah.
To go back to the technical stuff, you know, the checklist is helpful. And I do actually on my website have sort of more for the mix prep side, if anyone is, you know, interested,
sure. Yep.
a little PDF that sort of goes through kind of, I think it's the 5 or 6 kind of, it might even be less than that actually, but the most important things to sort of think about before you send off to a mastering engineer, because there's a lot of misconception there, I think. Yeah. I think that's
because, I mean, the misconception, I'm just jumping at one of them, but I could assume that there are a lot of people who just kind of would guess that, well, you know what, my levels are kind of, you know, crazy over here, or there's all these wild dynamic swings and all that, but it'll get fixed in post. Like it, you know, the mastering will just take care of it and it'll be just fine. I don't really have to concern myself with that. Do you find yourself in any sort of alarming situations like that where you're like, whoa, I gotta ask the artist to change things up? I mean, maybe myself included. I don't know. Or but maybe as a genre, the genre as a whole, maybe ambient is less prone to having giant things that go sideways on you. But do you find yourself needing to ask for pre-master revisions quite often, or are you able to do what you're able to do with the majority of what? And maybe that just means the people who are sending you the pre-masters are doing a wonderful job and they're taking your advice and they're looking through that checklist and they're like, okay, I can, if I want to get the best result, maybe I should offer a pre-master that's going to tee up for that best result.
Yeah, I think it does happen, and it's less so these days. And I think that is just down to the people that I'm fortunate enough to work with, you know, now are very good at what they do. And I have a level of respect towards each of them that they have given me the best thing that they can. And the thing that sort of speaks to them what it is it needs to speak. So I think if I'm hearing something completely off that just instinctively sounds, I don't want to use the word, but I can't think of anything else wrong, then I'll just have a conversation with that artist.
Yeah.
And just see, you know, what the intention was. Because 9 times out of 10, it was what they wanted. Each project sort of teaches you something new, I think, constantly learning.
Yeah.
Every day.
Man.
That's, you know, a big part of that really is, our experience, it's meant to grow. It's meant to, you know, become wiser or, you know, more open, more in tune with, you know, what we're being given to work with. But
right.
Yeah.
I love that. So Benjamin, you spend, I know you spend a lot of time in the kind of ambient cinematic genre sort of thing, but that is certainly not all that you do. And I know that just looking at your portfolio of the different projects that you've been able to lend your hand to, you cover a lot of genre ground, which is beautiful. I guess I don't have a specific question in that. I was just curious, like, what are some of the most fun things about where you're just like, man, I'm excited to mix this ambient project today because I love this about the ambient genre, or I'm excited to mix this hip hop project today because I love this about this genre. You know, first of all, what a cool thing to really never get bored in a sense, and to be able to have influence in all those different genres. You know, I don't know what percentage of your plate is this genre versus that genre, but yeah, what are some of your favorite things about the different genres that you get to touch? What are the things that as a mastering engineer, you're like, I love that? Because, and not that there's a singular answer for anything, but just, yeah, your joy and your love of what you do translating to each specific genre. Just kind of curious what some of those are.
So, okay. So I'll do ambient.
Yeah.
This is a great question. For me, like ambient is the space of taking a listener somewhere else. And I think the beautiful thing about that genre is it can be anywhere that it takes you. So in that sense, it kind of can encapsulate anything in terms of the feeling that it conjures. And I, you know, probably work on, I don't know the percentage exactly, but it's a large chunk of the stuff that I work on. I love that because each project is it says something completely different. You know, it takes me as a listener to vastly different spaces.
Yeah.
You know, that by far my favorite thing about it. And each artist sort of, you know, they seem to have their own kind of thread of where they want to take people. You know, your own work, Mike, is, you know, is so vivid, if that's the right word, in terms of, you know, where it takes me. And I actually, it's funny, I don't know if this is, you know, anything particular to your work, but I do like working on your stuff in headphones. Or at least
this is the first time I've heard that. That's fun.
Yeah. Or at least listening, doing a final listen in headphones.
Yeah.
Because
the very headphones that are on your head right now.
They are these beautiful things.
Nice.
Yeah. There's just something about the way that kind of, you know, closed eyes is right there, you know, and nothing else kind of sensorily, if that's a word.
Let's go with it.
You know, takes you away from that.
Yeah.
And then sort of going wider, you know, hip hop. I do a fair bit of hip hop.
Yeah.
Low end, man.
Yes, sir.
When a mix comes in with a certain quality of low end and you know, not blowing smoke, but your stuff has this.
Sure.
And I think it's just down to people being kind of concerned with that area.
Yeah.
But when a mix comes in with this certain quality, it's going to be a good day.
Yeah.
You know?
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So low end, but also similarly, kind of anything rhythmic. And I'm going to go out on, you know, this is controversial, but ambient to me has a lot of rhythm to it, actually.
Tell me more. I love that. Explore that.
Yeah. So it's expanded and slowed down for sure. But the kind of, you know, lulls and sweeps and kind of, you know, how things undulate within, you know, I think that genre is rhythmic. Those things, I think. But that doesn't mean to say that, you know, I love it, working on it all. It's all sort of fascinating, endlessly fascinating.
Oh, man. You can hear the joy and the wonder in your voice when you're answering these. And again, that I think that's just the most beautiful marriage of the two, where again, you're very talented at what you do, but it is not just okay, I'm showing up at the office today and I'm going to make my widgets and away we go. And there's sort of like your heart is divorced from it. Like you care about what you're bringing forward and what, you know, you're connecting with the art, and that's such a cool thing, man. Thank you for caring in a way that brings such beauty to the work that you touch. And honestly, man, we're going to, if you're open to it, it would be so fun to have you back on the podcast. I'm looking at the time and I'm like we're just getting started. Like I feel like there's so much more to go. And I would be honored if you would ever be up for a round 2 of all this, by all means.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. Would love to.
But hey, it's awesome. Perfect. But yeah, it just your care means a lot to every project that you touch, to every artist that has the privilege to work with you. And yeah, man. And it's funny. It's kind of an aside, left-hand turn, but but I'm looking at my reflection in the screen and I was like, oh, thank you, Benjamin, for helping me figure out my new monitor setup. I think it was about a year ago, but I was running on a very, my subpar pair of things that I had used for years. And I was just scared of having to relearn, and like what my ears needed to adjust to new. And you were beyond gracious and so informative on different choices I can make and the pros and cons of all of them. And so you helped me to the Neumann setup. I adore it. And hopefully this past year plus of stuff that I have been sending you, has it been maybe a couple years, but the amount of stuff I've sent you since then hopefully has taken a level up in pre-master quality.
Absolutely. Yes. And I would say to that, biggest bang for buck investment you can make as a music creator, is monitoring.
Yeah.
100%. Pedals, effects, plugins, they are fun. Yeah. And it's endlessly fun. But the kind of, the real kind of basic monitoring, acoustic treatment in the room, even just good pair of headphones, makes a huge difference. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, it's like, maybe it's not quite the apples to apples analogy, but like you can do all the fun, fancy things to your car and you can do all of this, they do all this stuff, and it is not all that fun to spend a lot of money on really good tires versus, just kind of run of the mill ones. But the amount of difference that it makes to have a great set of tires on your vehicle versus something that was, in the discount bin or whatever. It's not all that much fun to make that, but like you said, your return on investment far surpasses whatever other things you can be doing. And so that's a great word to anyone questioning anything, not knocking any of the purchases you're making or anything like that, but just make sure that you don't convince yourself that your monitoring situation should be low on the totem pole of priorities. So that's
absolutely,
I like that. Well, Matt, we'll keep cracking open more stuff next time we chat. But Benjamin, thank you for sharing your time. You said no to mastering a few songs, I'm sure, by saying yes to doing this. But it is not lost on me or on the entire All Ambient community just how much of a gift it is to have ears and a heart like yours involved on helping bring so many of these releases to life. And just thank you for doing what you do, man. It means a lot.
Thank you, Mike. I'm honored. It's the best job.
Yes, it is. We're in this together, man. For sure. Thanks again for joining us on the All Ambient podcast. This is about as shameless of a plug as it gets, but it really does help for those of you who are watching to give us a rating if you're on any podcast platform like Apple or Spotify or anything like that. On YouTube, we would love a follow, a subscribe, a like, all that fun stuff. And please leave a comment, a review, whatever is applicable to the right place that you're finding this. It really does go a long way. You don't have to make anything up by any means, but if there's some value in this podcast for you, we'd love to hear about it. We, as the All Ambient family, would love to meet you. I know it does my heart good, as well as everybody else who's involved at All Ambient. So please do so. Come back and join us next week. We got another great episode coming your way. And until then, here's hoping that this music and the hearts behind it make your day and your life that much better. Thanks.